tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Here we go. Love you guys. Enjoy Eddie Bravo and Dave Avocado. Hungry like the wolf.
We go
Enjoy.
deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain.
All right, so let's get into it. It's the Big 500. And I thought, who better to have on than this gentleman? You could see him this Saturday, 2 shows in the 500th episode and in stand-up. My good friend, I love him to pieces, Eddie Bravo.
Thank you for having me.
How are you, brother?
I'm good. Considering it's the end of the world, it's not too bad.
Or it's the beginning of the world. It depends on how you
Totally.
see it, brother.
Yeah.
I see bright stuff coming. I see them losing everything, and we'll get into that. But super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Eddie. I was watching the old episode, the very first episode that both of us was on, and I'll talk about on Saturday, but I cannot thank you enough for everything you've ever done for me, brother.
Hey, thank you, man. I can't thank you enough as well, man. I wouldn't be doing comedy right now if it wasn't for you.
It's
If you didn't give me the opportunity to get on the main stage and the comedy at the Comedy Store, nobody else is going to give me that opportunity at all. Nobody. There's not one person that would let me get on the main stage, but you let me get on your show, and that kicked it off.
And now we just tour and we just wreck shop. And then we're 2 old guys that go get fucking something to eat and go to bed. That's our fucking time, right? We just play. This guy somehow finds the 2-3 Mexicans in the city of no Mexicans, finds them, does stuff, and we hope he makes his flight.
Hey, always do though.
Right? And then I just go to bed. Yes, for sure. So I love you and thank you for doing the show.
Too,
so this week's going to be very good. There's only a couple tickets left. It will probably
Vegas, baby.
Vegas. It will probably be sold out the first show.
This
but
Saturday.
The second show, Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night, there's still some tickets left. See the whole crew. Xavier Guerrero. Johnny's doing a couple minutes, okay? So that's going to be big.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Is that big? Is that really big?
That's going to be
huge,
big.
yeah.
In this universe, that's huge. Tino Sanchez and Klaus Schwab Jr. will be joining us, so that will be cool. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Eddie's like, let's do a comedy tour for conspiracy theorists. And we started at the bottom, now we're here, and it's very cool. So thank you for all that.
Hell yeah.
Very excited to have our next guest on, man. He's a nutritionist. He's an organic farmer. And, dude, this dude can smell out water wherever he goes. Very excited to have him on. Please welcome David Hungry. How are you, brother?
David Hungry.
Best ever.
Oh, David Wolf. Oh, I said it wrong. David Wolf. Sorry, brother. I have you in my phone as David Hungry like the avocado wolf. I did read the whole thing. David Wolf, how are you, brother?
Started in 8th grade with that Duran
I'm just my bad.
He's like Ron Burgundy. Go fuck yourself, San Diego. He'll just read whatever's up there.
David Wolf, how are you, brother?
Dude, best ever. Living out here in Texas now, trying to get you guys over here. Love LA, but man, they've turned that into a gong show of corruption and insanity. So happy to be over here, all set up now.
I don't know how you change it. I don't think the people here have any desire to change. They're worshiping this old altar of show business that you need 90 green lights to get on a project, and they don't want to be the one that pisses off one person on the chain, so they won't speak up. So, and you have a lot of people that, let's face it, aren't invested in the future in LA. A lot of people living in right now. I need this TV show. I need my legacy. I need everything. Nobody's thinking about the kids. So many of these people are having conversation about what's going on in school, do not have children, and I don't see how it changes.
You know what changes? Because we just drive the bus around it. That system's over. It's like Blair Witch Project or any of these like low budget projects that came in from the side and hit the industry from another angle. And that's what we got to do. So I keep creating content, keep creating films, keep doing shows. You keep doing the same. And the people will find it. And that's the world we live in now. So we drove the bus around Hollywood. Hollywood's a dying breed, unfortunately. There were some great moments, but it's dead. And now it's living again in other places like Florida and Texas, where people actually have real liberty and real freedom and real creativity. And that's the exciting part.
You know, it's so interesting. The term Hollywood will always be there. It will be when movies, indie television stuff, like are even off of Netflix. We're talking like people will build their own streaming sites. It will be like when they say, "Hey, dude, will you TiVo that for me?" No one really has a TiVo anymore, but they know the term, what you're talking about. That's what it's going to be with Hollywood. They're going to talk about Hollywood when they mean movie film, but the actual Hollywood itself in Hollywood, California, is done. It's done.
Done. Over. Nobody wants it. It was all programming, terrible messages. I mean, a lot of it was fun. It was great to watch, and a lot of it was good too. But it's over. That world's over, and it's a genre. It's a category. Okay, there's the Hollywood films. New genres are coming in. Crazy opportunities are going to come up in the next 10 years with all this insanity that's going on. Because with the crises of our times, amazing opportunities will be happening every direction. I think the most important thing over the next 10 years is picking what you're going to do, because there's going to be a lot of good opportunities. You just got to pick and choose wisely.
And you have to understand that it's going to get uncomfortable. And it's like, that's okay. Got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And because you're going to have to go through this when you forge a new path up the mountain, you're like leading the way, bro. You're the machete. It's not gonna be easy. It takes people doing it a bunch of times for there to be a nice path for everybody to follow. So you're gonna have to go through it. And it's like what Joey Diaz says. You gotta have immigrant mentality, man. Which is like my dad, as flawed as a man as he was, worked 90 jobs. Our grandparents, we heard about them having 90 jobs. Like, get uncomfortable, man. You got your day job that has to pay your bills. You're going to have to work, you got kids, you got to take care of that. Then you got to work on your side biz that you want to be your main biz. And get uncomfortable with that. Get comfortable with being tired, with having no time to fucking rest. Get comfortable with that. Because that's what happens when you're trying to go for the fucking gold, bro.
What percentage of big Hollywood movies are propagandized? Would you say 80, 90, 100?
Today?
Today it seems like it's 100, right? It seems like it's 100.
It's
but,
100.
But then
I'd
you
say
think,
100
it's
today it's 100. I agree.
But then you gotta.
I'll take 100, Sam.
But then you gotta think
Show
like
me 100.
But then you got to think like propaganda didn't just start. Maybe it's in the 80s. Maybe all those films in the 80s had some kind of propagandized message. I wish there was a list of movies that were 100% propaganda free, like a list, like a TV guide, TV shows. It seems like every TV show had some kind of angle, right?
I think it goes to what does the elites want us to be thinking and doing at the time.
You know, you always hear about writers who sell a script to Hollywood and they always say, dude, they totally changed my script. They fucked it all up. That's so common, right?
Yeah.
It seems like if Hollywood is just a propaganda machine, that maybe, the people who are pushing the propaganda, they're not writers. So it's like they have to get like real writers to write scripts, and they're looking for scripts that they could tweak into propaganda. And that's why they're changing it, because they'll take a real legit writer who's like, who's in a trance, who's following his dreams and all that shit. And then they take those scripts and go, okay, we could tweak this into exactly what we want. Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like that?
They do that with like books and
Yeah, because the
always
people
hear
at the
books are
top, they
better.
can't write movies.
Yeah.
The people at the top, they write shitty movies. They need real writers that they could get close enough to like something that they want to push, and then they mold it into it. Boom, and they go, "Sorry, here's your money. Bam, we're gonna change this shit
Well,
up."
it's like when you talked about that video you sent me that I thought was just hitting on the head, which is the internet's dead, right? Episode 1 of that. The guy put out a 2-parter. But in that video, he talks about how some people flourish and some people don't. How many times have you been on Twitter? I know some people gotten off Twitter, and you see some guy who's got 300,000 retweets and likes, and you look at it, it's like, me pee pee poo poo. And everyone's like, why is this thing getting 1 billion retweets?
Yeah.
It's because they reward those who shine and they who do what they want, and they fucking silence those who don't play the game. And that fits in exactly what you want. So they're looking for. So people have gotten really, really good at pitching projects they think the industry wants, not what they think people want to consume. They're like, oh, the industry will love this.
Yeah.
So, right. So there's an old saying that who was the big gay guy that did the
Louis Anderson?
Louis Anderson had a great quote, and he was like, back in my day, the entertainers told the industry what was funny. Yeah. Now the industry tells the entertainers what is funny. That is where that's what is dying off, in my humble opinion.
They just let what they want out rise to the top. They give the green lights to those
gatekeepers,
things.
right?
Yeah, they're gatekeepers.
Yeah, and bands coming up too. Because I mean, I was in that trance. I wanted to be a rock star my whole life. I wanted fame. I go to Hollywood. I moved to Hollywood. I fucking moved to Hollywood to be a rock star. They had me good, right? So then you always hear like these bands like, oh, you're only gonna get signed if you do this or do that, and the labels want this and the labels want that, and you think they want that because they know what the people want. But now it's like, no, they want that because it helps their agenda.
100%,
right?
dude. 100%.
Because all the bands are like, oh, they're signing bands like this and they're signing bands like that. And look at the shit they were signing. Goddamn, the 80s, I'm a big metalhead. I fucking love Slayer and all that shit. Venom and Merciful Fate and King Diamond, all that shit. It was like super satanic. And now I'm thinking, damn, they got left alone. All those bands, they never got fucked with. They were fucking with Twisted Sister. Like you, that's when I knew. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are going after Twisted Sister and Judas Priest?
Twisted
Sister. Slayer is. I mean, Slayer has a song called "Angel of Death." It's about Auschwitz and it's brutal. Nobody fucked with Slayer. Nobody just left them alone. It was hilarious.
You know where else they hit them hard? Gangster rap.
Well, that's
with NWA,
yeah.
Same shit happened. They let it go.
And then they made a movie about it, CB4, like kind of exposing it. Isn't that crazy?
Right,
that they were like a pretend actors, gangsters, studio gangster actors.
It also
pranksters.
gets to like, I mean, it's like it's what killed, Viacom. They started pushing what they wanted over what people want to consume, and it just became.
That's the whole system, bro. That's where we are. It's in music. Now it's in politics. Now it's in culture. They're trying to get the people at the top pushing everything. They're the gatekeepers of everything. That's where we're at. That's why like your vote doesn't count because they're just going to cheat. They're going to change your vote because they're pushing it now. They're in charge. It's happening throughout the whole culture, and it's alarming, but it's going to come to a fight because basically the people have been like people say, well, should we secede? Maybe Texas should secede. Look, the federal government of the United States already seceded from the people decades ago. They have nothing to do with the will of the people. They do what they want.
Do you have a concern about secession that it looks a lot like the breaking up of the USSR? I get very concerned when you break us up into tinier little countries that were easier to manipulate, which is what they did. I'm a big Tartarian guy. I just came out, everybody. I'm a Tartarian. I think today is come out day.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday?
I think it was
so
yesterday.
I should have came out yesterday.
Yeah,
I believe in Tartaria.
We all knew,
Did you,
man. We all
did
knew.
you watch the 5-hour history of the flat earth, or what's it called? It was a 5-hour discourse this British dude did. Was that the one that got you?
No, we've had a lot of people on, and obviously all of it. I'm not like, okay, I don't know, but
Auburn got him.
What?
Auburn got him the city.
Oh,
What was it? Was that the name of the city?
Yeah, well, yeah, when we were on the road with your buddy that was driving us to Iowa City. Where we play in Iowa? I forget where we played.
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma. No, you remember when you gave away the belt and we were there and the guy that was driving us, what's it?
Kansas City?
Yeah, and we went from Kansas City to Iowa.
Omaha.
There we go.
Nebraska.
And he took us around. He's showing us up, but that wasn't it. It was just like, so you know what really got me? The World Fairs. The World Fairs. I'm like, okay.
The world fairs make no sense. That's a good point. That's I think the biggest smoking gun in the whole thing.
But if
makes no sense.
If you start to, are you a Tartarian dog?
I love Tartaria stuff. I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I love going to star forts. There's a great star fort in Bacalar, Mexico, right south of Tulum, and there's a restaurant, a vegan restaurant, right at the middle of it, and it's a super killer spot. You can like check out the whole thing, touch it, go around it, really interesting. And then they made up some story. Oh, they made this in like 1750 or something. It's like, no, they didn't. No way. They did this whole smooth. It looks like a pyramid. It's completely smooth on the side. Perfect. All the stones are perfect, cut perfectly. You're like, no, I'm not going to believe some British dudes like sailed over here and built that. I'm not buying it. And so that's the cool thing about the Tartarian stuff. You can check it out.
Well, somebody told me that they just had a podcast with somebody who said that they found a globe, an old globe, and it had Tartaria on the globe. And he's going to give me pictures of it and all this stuff. But it's just like when you start getting into Khazarians and all that stuff, it like Tartaria fits right into it, dude. Like Putin, right? So these Pandora papers come out. Putin's mistress is worth $100 million, bro. Right? And you're
Unreal,
like, damn, dude. And then you start going, well, who is Putin? What does Putin represent? And like, if you really think about what Putin's job is, he's probably a lot like Biden, just way more competent. His job is to keep down the Russians. And he keeps all the money for himself. And he is a product of this group of people that these parasites that are running everything, that are a little higher up. Like everyone's be Zionists, neocons, neoliberals, communists. Dude, there's a level above that. And who tells those people what to do? Okay? That group of people installed Putin to keep down Russia because Russia was the center of Tartaria, in my humble opinion.
Now I looked into Tartaria a little bit here and there, and recently a lot, and looking through all the buildings and structures that look like they were melted. Like it's starting to really make sense. But I remember when I first saw a video on Tartaria, someone had said that the king of Tartaria were like the sons of Jesus or something like that. Did you guys hear about this?
I've heard that theory,
I mean,
yes.
Like that Jesus actually had kids and he had sons and there was a dynasty and that was Tartaria. I'm like, show me the evidence of that. Sounds cool. But
dude, there's some talk about when you get into the Bible and you start studying Bibles, there's a lot of goddess talk that like the Roman Catholic Church took out of, like basically made so you had to be single male. Like that kind of works out perfect. They took out God's talk, there's a whole theory that Jesus didn't die on the cross, that actually there was a swap out, and Mother Mary and his who's his hooker girlfriend, right? Like snuck them
Mary
out.
Magdalene?
Mary Magdalene. So his mom was Mary and his girlfriend was Mary.
Yeah.
Damn, dude, that's a mom fetish.
That's why they call her
right
Mary
there.
Magdalene.
David, is there in your research with Tartaria, did Jesus ever make it into Tartaria? As far as you know,
First I've heard that. That's
oh,
the first
okay.
I've
Then I
heard
guess
that.
not. I guess not. Maybe it was
Nope.
bullshit. Yeah. So what do you know
sounds
about?
good.
Like if you had to put Tartaria as far as what you know in a nutshell, what would you say about it?
I'd say that you go back 200 years, we don't know a goddamn thing about anything. We don't know what history is. We have no idea
Dude,
what
I'm
happened.
right there with you.
It's all bullshit and lies. It's a total scam. When we think about photoshopping today, well, the Tartarian stuff, I got into the Tartarian stuff from looking at pictures of LA, for example, in 1860, 1870. And there's obviously Photoshop stuff in there. Same with the Civil War pictures. It's obviously Photoshop, meaning that they were basically compositing and changing the images all along throughout all history, even from the invention of the camera. even at that point, and who knows if the camera existed before? It probably did. It was probably invented earlier. I've seen crazy stuff. Like, for example, if you look at like when the syringe was invented, very important and pertinent for today, it was supposedly invented in like 1814 or something. And then on another thing, I'm looking at Jacques Cousteau, and they're salvaging a wreck from 1720, and they pull up a syringe. So which story is the right one? You know, it's all, the whole story of history is, you go back 200 years and it's a mess. It's just, we have no idea what happened. And that's the real message of the Tartarian stuff to me.
I totally agree, because if you don't know your history, you don't know how special you are. And then, you know, and we see this now with all culture, man. I think all culture is manufactured by these fucking people and think tanks that are funded by very powerful, these parasites, I call them.
When I first started traveling and teaching seminars, the one thing I noticed was I was brought up to believe, maybe I'm just an idiot, but I was brought up to believe that the United States was by far like the only country that had, you know, the best country, and you can't live anywhere else. Everywhere else sucks. And once I started going to different countries, I'm like, this is pretty cool here too. I'd go to, you know, Sweden. Sweden was cool. You go to Sydney. I was in Sydney. I'm like, this feels like LA, you know. And then and I thought we were the only country with I thought we were the only country with a constitution. I didn't know everybody had a constitution. And then you find out that every country got a constitution. They all got their story of how they won their independence. And I'm like, wait a minute, every country got a story like us. But it seems, I mean, for sure, we probably are, just based on the Second Amendment, the freest country. And that's really the only thing that separates us, is that.
I think Thailand's pretty free. You can go shoot guns and get a lady boy like in a meal deal.
That's what you think about freedom? That's
freedom.
Cut that out. Let's loop that.
That was an attempt at a joke that
that.
will haunt me for the rest of my life.
Tripoli rap.
But, you know, no, 100%. Like our Second Amendment. Now, Canada has some, you know, guns. They own guns. They were talking about per capita. They thought Canada had more, but
rural, I think he was saying. Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, you're right, dude. I mean, it's very interesting about how, like, we are raised and we are brainwashed and we're programmed to think certain things depending on what they need from us at that time. And, you know, it's like when I travel the world, I think one of the most mind-opening things that ever happened to me was when I went to China, and then right after that, I went to Afghanistan. And I just realized that people are people, man. And they just want to laugh. They want to have a drink. They want to get laid once in a while. And they want to be able to feed their family. And that is universal.
Yeah.
And that these government structures are what causes wars. But it's never the people that want the wars. It's always the governments. But most likely they're ran by the same people. Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at like Mao, Stalin, they all went to the same school, man. They went literally to the same school.
Is that like the presidents here?
Well, you do. I mean, they're all related about skull and crossbones.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you think that people were easier to manipulate, let's say 200 years ago, when there was we weren't interconnected and people knew nothing about what actually was going on overseas, or now when you can deliver a message to everybody instantly? When do you think? Do you think it's easier to manipulate people?
Last night. That's interesting. That same question came up last night. Here's my answer. I think it's easier to manipulate people now, even though we have all these communication devices and all these tools, because I think people were smarter back then. They were better educated. They were more sensible. So that's my take on it.
I agree with that. I think the only thing that kind of worked back then was that there was only one source, the newspaper. There was books. Like, and, you know, you say that all the time. It's in a book. Yeah. It's in a book, right? Like, everyone's like, books are just like this beacon of truth,
man.
You
can't lie in a book.
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
The typewriters are incapable of
That's my whole thing.
Lying.
So what are we doing here? I mean, like, so it's interesting. People are always like, oh man, you know, like people way in the back were smarter. I think that it's just like, what are the information you get? Like, peasants from the 1500s were bombarded with so much useless information that it's overloading. You know, it's kind of like Eastbound and Down when, you know, he's like, you know, man, when you live your life, you go see the world, you got to get rid of old memories and make room for new memories, right? And you're like, and then you kind of go home to and you see your family, and you see buddy from high school who's lived a simple, fun life. And he's like, you remember when we were in 8th grade? We did. You're like, I don't remember any of that. So my whole thing is like, we might have so much bandwidth in us, and they bombard it with like, who is Kim Kardashian? Is Joe Biden a clone? And we're just bombarded with all this shit that's so much harder to sift through the crap. So you got to find these people that you trust and like kind of read what they have to say, because they don't have any skin in the game in terms of being paid by blah, blah, blah. But even that might be crazy. So,
David, obviously you're red-pilled as fuck. Can you tell us what was your moment? How did you start to doubt what the mainstream was feeding us?
So I was born in Toms River, New Jersey, which is right next to the most toxic chemical plant in America, highest cancer rate in America, Toms River, New Jersey. Eventually they wrote a book on it, interesting book, and all the effluent from it went right past that hospital where I was born, right to my house where I grew up. And our neighbors next door to us, they were a very wealthy Hungarian family. They had like 20 shopping centers and grocery stores, and the matriarch of the family, ever since I was a little kid, I would go over there and just hang out with them instead of coming into my house. And she would say like, what'd they teach you in school today? And I'd be like, oh, we learned that FDR was a president. And she'd go, let me tell you about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And she would go berserk about the Social Security number and what their plans are and the eventual plans of the Democrat Party to overrun the borders with immigrants. I mean, she was telling me that when I was 5 years old in 1975.
Holy
How did
shit.
she know? Where did she get the information?
She got the information because she was high up with the corruption in the state of New Jersey. So she would be like, that guy's the bag man for the state of New Jersey. See that mayor guy over there? That guy's corrupt AF, and just that kind of stuff. All the years growing up with her, she was a super patriot. She used to paint her nails as American flags, and she just knew. She had a sense of what corruption was about. Her husband was a World War II vet, and they knew. And so I listened to what they helped me to understand. All these years later, I'm like, oh my God, she was right about that. Look what's happening right now. They're overrunning the borders. This is all planned. It's like, it goes on and on. So I've been watching.
And then how did you get into your expertise is nutrition and organic farming? How'd you get into that?
Well, I started out when I first came to California in 1977 from New Jersey. My uncle got a place. My uncle worked for Ralston Purina Corporation. They transferred him to Food Maker, which is the people make food for Jack in the Box. You guys know Crap in the Box, right?
Oh, yeah.
And everyone in SoCal knows. And so my uncle controlled food quality for them for years, right up until they fired him. And that's when they had all those salmonella poisonings and all that. You guys remember that from the 90s?
Yeah.
And I grew up on the border, actually. My uncle's farm was right on the border with Mexico. So when I hang out with Eddie, he reminds me of all my Mexican friends, which I miss these days. It's it's hard to find those old friends. Anyway, the situation there was we grew citrus and avocados there out in the desert, and we had tremendous success and grew a lot of food. And that's where it started for me. I started getting into farming. Both my parents are doctors, so that's like the nutrition. So that's my story, and I started out, just very small scale and build it up, and eventually traveling the world and doing seminars on nutrition and getting people into the truth, which is your food is your medicine. Herbs are much better than pharmaceuticals. And I've been saying this for years. People would just go, what are you talking about? I'd say, dude, medical communism precedes actual communism every time. They'd be like, no, you're a maniac. And so now they're like, wait, what?
Oh,
what
and this has been going on since the 40s, man. And the American Medical Association was the beginning.
Don't be afraid to have a conversation with your health professional. As always, stay happy and healthy.
All this money in to create this fake standard that they became this gold standard of our healthcare thing. They had to give you the seal of approval, even over and over and over and over again. They approved drugs, and where have we heard this recently? They approved drugs that actually did a lot of damage. And then they turned down drugs that did not play the ball, did not buy ads in their journal. That's where it started, buying ads in the AMA journal. And that's where it started. They started shutting down anybody that was pushing holistic medicine. They would raid grandma's houses and steal their herbs and spices.
Cut, burn, poison, germ theory, Rockefeller.
Let me ask you something, Dave. You brought it up. One of my favorite topics is germ versus terrain.
Oh, I love that subject.
So let's talk about it now, Johnny. Will you do me a favor? Yes. Will you be devil's advocate here and ask any question? Because I feel like Dave is a guy. I'm really upset that I butchered the intro because you're such a G. You got such good energy, and I'm very thankful you would come on the show. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts, and I'm gonna have Johnny, because Johnny's really good at thinking outside the box. Ask you a couple questions because I think you're right. I think germ therapy is bullshit.
Germ theory?
Germ theory.
Yeah.
Is bullshit.
Okay.
As
opposed to terrain theory.
I think terrain theory is where it's at, where it's like.
Don't be afraid to have a conversation with your health professional. As always, stay happy and
But
healthy.
okay, so can you tell us a little bit about it? Yeah.
I'm gonna give you. So this is maybe there's people who know more than me on this. I've studied with some of the best doctors in the world. I spent 10 years with Dr. Hitt in Tijuana, where he was the most amazing virologist, probably one of the top virologists in the world, and his theories. And so I've got all that built into my life experience, traveling the world, talking to doctors, and understanding that really it's more about terrain than germs all along. Because back 27 years ago on the internet, at the very beginning of the selling books on the internet, we used to sell against Amazon books like Béchamp or Pasteur, who was right. That was the name of a book, great book. And here's my take on it after all these years. I'm not a terrain theory maximalist. Like, I don't want to be sprayed with live anthrax. I don't care what your terrain is. You're gonna be fucked up. You get sprayed with live anthrax. I don't want to go kiss somebody who has a cold sore. Sorry, not gonna do that either. So I'm not a terrain theory maximalist where I think it's only terrain and germs don't exist.
Okay.
This terrain right here can never be affected by some pathogen coming in from over here. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Now that you have to get Dr. Cowan and you have to get Dr. Kaufman in on that. And I love those guys and I love what they're doing, but I don't necessarily ascribe, because I've tested those theories for decades and I don't think it adds up. So I'm a terrain theory oriented person. I think that's 80% of the whole picture. And then the other part is like, hey, if you are constantly dirty, if you're letting microbes get a hold of you, if you don't clean between your toes, you're going to get problems, because those microbes eventually start going, hey, let's start eating this dude's skin. Hey, what about this? So this person got an open sore. Let's just dive right in. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't think that the germ theory is 100% wrong, but it's definitely way wrong. I mean, it's maximalized now. Fauci's a germ theory maximalist, and that entire system, Bill Gates, all those people are germ theory maximalists. It's like the germ's coming to get you, man. It's the new cooties. That's where they're at. And we have to work on terrain, but still be aware that there are pathogenic substances and things out there. For example, nobody's going to want to go out and say, yeah, just go ahead and inject me with, some cocktail of viruses and leukemia, and, my immune system will fight it off. That's not a smart move to make. You want to make sure your terrain is strengthened, but you don't want to expose yourself to something that's dangerous. Like Wim Hof did when he did, he proved that like through the cold water, he could fight it off with his immune system. Sure, you could do that, but that's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time. You don't want to be wasting your time doing that.
I think it's very interesting. Eddie, your thoughts, and I'll jump in.
I like that. I like what I'm hearing.
I like the combination because they've been pushing this idea forever. And let's face it, they have unlimited money, right? And all these labs. Is it possible that they have been working on not so much that they could.
Let's talk about viruses a little bit, because the whole idea of the virus is very poorly understood. So here's where I'm at in understanding what they're actually doing in those labs. What they're really doing is playing with cellular shit and piss. That's it. This is the human race, right? If I took you back to the Civil War and you're like, okay, we got to make gunpowder. What is gunpowder? From the Civil War earlier in time, gunpowder was made from piss and shit. And true. And so monkeys throwing shit at each other, we never got much further than that. Really, the human race is actually, in some way, we're infatuated with piss and shit. This is true.
How is gunpowder piss and shit? Explain that.
That's
Explain
$1 million question.
What you would do is you're basically processing all human waste, because human waste has a lot of sulfur in it, and you're processing all human waste with charcoal, and you're processing all urine with charcoal, and you're drying it out in the sun, and you're processing and drying it out in the sun, processing, drying it out in the sun, and eventually you're going to create a potassium nitrate, which is your spark. You pop and it's going to spark. So with that and the sulfur from the feces and a little bit of then charcoal again added in, that's your original gunpowder right there. Potassium nitrate from urine, sulfur from feces, and charcoal. That's gunpowder.
So gunpowder factories, they collected human shit?
Yes, they did. And pig.
Really?
And that was a big business. Yes, this was a huge business, and that's the way they
fertilizer.
got the Civil War.
So everybody knows fertilizer comes from shit. So fertilizer can be used as gunpowder, or
yes. Now they use potassium nitrate just as an isolated chemical, because you can make it in different ways without using piss and shit.
They talk about that. Like, how many times, like, the bomber was trying to get a large quantity of fertilizer, right? Yep. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And then Rogan had that North Korean lady on. It was like, we had to bottle our poop and hand it in. Well, if that's what they're talking about.
That makes sense now. Yeah, because it was hard to understand. Like she was saying on JRE that they have to save all their shit and they have to turn in like a ton of shit every year
without them being fed.
Yeah,
like what are you shitting out?
Exactly. She said they take
great question.
She said they take one shit a month or something.
One shit.
Well, by the way, we'll get into that. By the way, if you guys want to do a show on people who've lived without food, I had a guy who lived without food for 7 years who lived with me, and so I know it's real. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh no, that's some bullshit, or that's some conspiracy bullshit, or something. Like, I've been around it. It's real, and I don't care what anybody says, and no one can disprove what I have personally experienced. I know a being who's been in that position, and the energy coming off of that being and what that is. But that might be for another show.
Whoa. How skinny was this guy?
He was totally ripped. He used to be a professional rugby player. We would do crazy workouts like fireman carries every day.
He wouldn't eat?
He was between 140 and 145 pounds. I put him on scales every day. We'd go to the gym and I'd be like, get on the scale, and he'd be like, 142.
He would drink water though.
No, he wouldn't drink water either. Rarely. If he wouldn't drink water for weeks.
Would he live off the sun?
How would he live?
Through motion, through physical fitness. He's a professional athlete, super disciplined professional athlete, and he just kept going with the detox and the cleansing and the detox and the cleansing. And that's what we got to do a whole show on that, because I've because of being around him and living with him, I know the vibe. So I just did a 7-day water fast. I broke it yesterday morning. And so I learned from him how to do that and easily do that. So you're just, your blood sugar stable, and you go through the day and every day without even having to eat anything or really even have much water. And that's a whole show, because that's a really amazing, that's one of the more amazing things I've discovered in my career. I think it's one of the more fascinating areas of human potential.
I mean, we're learning tons of stuff. Poop is ammo, and you don't have to. I mean, like,
so the more you fast, the easier it is.
The easier it is. That's right. The more you do it, the easier it is. And so there's ways to get in there. But I want to go back to the contagion story that we're talking about. We don't completely understand what a contagion is. We do know that epidemics cannot occur in a hygienic society. So this is the thing that's been all the last Rockefeller medicine 100 years, right? It's a right? There's no epidemics in a hygienic society. That comes from poor hygiene, and that's anybody can understand that by going back and reading the great literature, the Iliad, or any great literature throughout all history. You'll find that epidemics would happen, and they'd have situations would break out, whatever it was, cholera, whatever, it's giardia, whatever, and something would get in the food, and people would get sick, and some people would die, and that's been common when hygiene was poor. But once hygiene became as good as it is now, there's no possibility of an epidemic. Now, this pattern that I'm bringing up here tells us something about how the people running the world work, right? They take an old idea and they try to keep dragging it into the future, keep dragging it right into the present moment because it's part of our racial memory.
Is it also that they flip it too? They'll take something like, don't look into the sun, and then people tell me sun gazing is good for you. And then they're like, do it, and you'll feel much better. And you're like, okay, so what is up is really down sometimes?
Their goal, the goal. So we can get this is a really good subject. I'd love to hear Eddie's take on this. My personal take on this from reading Rudolf Steiner all the last 25 years, and I'm a biodynamic farmer, so Rudolf Steiner is kind of our leader in that. Like, okay, what is he talking about? You mix his poop into the horn of a cow, and then you bury it in the earth, and that kind of stuff. And Rudolf Steiner was right about everything, as far as I can tell. And Rudolf Steiner left behind 1 million pages of material in his life. Think of how crazy that is. Let me tell you how crazy that is. That's 50 to 60 pages every single day, Monday through Sunday, from the age of 15 till he died in 65. That's how crazy that is. That's how much material left behind.
Oh my God!
What
his take on this moment is, this is the moment of the Antichrist when everything is reversed. So everything that's true is believed by the masses to be false, and everything that's false is believed by the masses to be true, which is getting to your point.
Rudolf Steiner, tell us a little bit about him. What was
he
his?
Died in 1925. So he was an extremely clairvoyant being. He just was like, imagine being on psychedelics 100% of the time. That's Rudolf Steiner. Like, he's having constant downloads, and he couldn't even comprehend like anybody else, because he would start talking to people about what he was experiencing. They're like, dude, like, who are you? You're whack. Until he was about 18, and then he was on a train, and this herbalist was sitting with him, and he started talking to this herbalist who was bringing herbs into Vienna. That was his job. And Rudolf Steiner started talking to him, and this guy's like, no, tell me more. What are you saying? And tell me more. And that herbalist was the guy who really got him going as a teacher, because he realized, like, this dude's got information from somewhere that makes sense and works. And that's really how Rudolf Steiner began his teaching career and writing career. He wrote vast tomes. He wrote a book like this thick on all the philosophers in history and what was right about their teachings and what was wrong. That book alone is like a life's work beyond craziest thing ever.
And where did he get his information? Did he claim that he read other books to get the information, or that he was channeling it from?
He channeled it. He channeled it.
So when we go back to this germ theory, the whole talk about, at one moment when I quote unquote had, I got extreme headaches, couldn't get out of bed, and my shoulder for the longest time was just jacked. And Johnny will tell you, I got what they called tongue. Mm-hmm. My tongue just started bleeding. So when I hear people go, yeah, it would just start.
Remember that he was in here doing that. Actually, remember
that's
the middle of his tongue,
bro. Your tongue was bleeding, like on the top.
The middle of it.
It was just one day I woke up and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And my tongue started bleeding. I told Johnny about it, and he goes, "They say that is a condition. It's called tongue." So I got that. So when people say there's no such thing, I go, then what was all that?
Well, also the thing, people were saying, okay, it's a common cold or whatever. When I don't know about you guys, I know XG knows someone who of this common cold, but there's something different going on right now. And I'd like to know what it is, because I know people that have, from what many people are telling me was just a cold, and that's the first year in my life that's ever been true. I've never known anyone to die of a cold before this year.
Well, because, and then I'd love to hear you guys' opinion, but because let's say he gets sick, he goes to the hospital, and he has cardiac arrest. They would say it was cardiac arrest. They won't blame it on COVID.
I personally, and other people here do too, know people who died of
or
a cold, some kind of viral nose
Right,
thing.
right. Okay, so your question is, if
What's
this
going
real,
on? Yeah, well, I'm not,
how's that happening?
I think it's, I think it's to the extreme.
Right.
To be clear, I think this whole thing's.
We've already kind of talked that
But
it could
something
be a little
is
bit
going
of
on.
both things.
Exactly.
David, what is your thoughts?
So my thoughts are that there's a number of different things that come up, but I think the primary thing that's
In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus. In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus. In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus. In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus. In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus. In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus.
So that's my take on the main cause of why we had such a weird summer of illness, which is totally unusual. I never saw anything like it in my life until this summer.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about how it's very rare, if not doesn't happen, that people get the flu in the summer.
I have a question, a real quick question, because I think this is a life or death question, and I get it. I've seen, and you've seen too, Sam, a few people tweeted us like, hey, my work is making me get the wish me luck, pray for me. I've seen that more than maybe 3 times.
I've seen a lot.
If it came down to that, how dangerous is this thing? I mean, is that enough to quit your job? What is it that dangerous?
You're all set there.
Boosted my immune system.
I'll tell you something. Like I just went the other day. I was with Justin Bua. Some of you guys know who Justin Bua is. He's a famous painter, and he said, "Come over to where I'm living now." So I was like, "Okay." I drove over that side of Texas, and he's like, "I'm looking at the place to move my place." He's like renting a place, trying to get in a nice spot. And I was like, "I'll go with you. I'll go see. We'll go to check out this real estate." And there was 3 real estate agents there. First one, mom died boom, instantly after the second, dead. Mom gone. The other one was a gal, and she was beautiful, nice, wonderful person, and she really wanted to get. She believed what the TV was telling her, and so her husband was like, if she's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So he does it, and he had the Nicki Minaj's cousin's friends swollen balls.
Oh,
and I saw him walking around like, it was like weird. So Justin's pretty full on. He's like, dude, what's going on here? And the guy tells him what happened, that after he got once, his balls swole up, and he has these like tumors on his balls, and he can't actually get an erection. Oh, and can you imagine that? Like the wife's like, "Oh, let's just go do this," and they're just innocent, and then they go do that, and that's what happened to them. That was just some random people we ran into. I don't know them. That was just a random story, random people I ran into that day.
Wow. So
that's how crazy it is.
I told Johnny that, and he didn't believe me, that my friend's dick wouldn't get up. He got COVID. Remember, I told you he has other problems. He's watching the wrong kind of porn.
Have other problems.
And I mean, it could have been something else, but it was one of those like that's so funny.
So this woman on TikTok was reading off of a website of one of the pharmaceutical companies, and they actually break down that there's 4 different versions, and they had different numeral, percent. Like one was 10, 20, 30, 40, and then, it was 20, 30, 40, and then placebo, which is what? Mm-hmm. Why is that out there?
I want to get into that for a second. I think I got a really good point on that, Sam and Eddie. Listen to this, you guys. So let's say I was manufacturing a job every second, every day for a year. How many jobs could I produce? Every second, 365, 24/7. It's going. I'm not talking about marketing problems. I'm not talking about cold storage problems. I'm not talking about supply problems. I'm not talking about anything. Just one job, and it's perfect every single second for a year. How many jobs have I produced?
Oh man, you're gonna make me do math. I'm gonna say
365.
Oh my God, math.
24. No,
like 30 million.
You want to know? Let me just tell you.
Yeah.
It's just a little. It's a little over 33 million.
Close, Johnny. You went just under, so you get the prize. Thank you. So 33 million. Okay, so 33 million.
That's Freemasonic right there.
Yeah.
Right. And so then if you think about it, you're like, wait, they couldn't have manufactured enough in time. So the D-dimer test data tells us, now these are doctors who took their patients who were, lab, and they were like, let's do a D-dimer test. Now, a D-dimer test shows all microclotting problems in that person. And 60%, roughly, a little bit more, like 60.2 or 62%, right in that range, were showing microclotting problems after being, and 40% were not. So my guess is that 40+% of what's out there is placebo. That's my take on it.
Right. And I agree with that. But then there's that one that's 40, whatever that number 40 represents. Yeah. And you're like, are these the people just through random bad luck that are getting hit with the bad one? And they're having awful effects to it because they're getting hit with way more than everybody else.
Yeah, I used to think that J&J was maybe the lesser of all the evils, but now there's no way of you knowing what they're putting in. I mean, they could be
I don't even think the person giving it to you knows which one they're giving to you.
Do you think it's by city? Different cities, different counties get different things?
Could be, man. But it's it's
the one thing. The one thing that not there's a bunch of things that confuse me, but that put out something like 2 months ago that starting December 31st, they're going to start using a new test because they just found out that the test they've been using can't tell the difference between the common cold and. So I'm like, wait a minute, this whole fucking time? So it's starting December 31st, they're going to start using a new test and they're going to throw out the old test because this is. They can't tell the difference between and the flu. You know, and there's a certain amount of people that think that is just, and they just, you know, and there's a bunch of other people, most other people think it's a real thing, right? And you got these people over here that think that it's just, and that's one fact that is for teen, that they're saying that this whole fucking time. You know, and they got, the number, the total deaths is around like 600,000, right? And then you got that number, they always go back to that 600,000. But when the CDC says that 95% of that 600,000 had at least 4 comorbidities.
Yeah.
What does that do to the number? Does that, I mean, people die every year. People die every year.
Eddie. People died. Tell me the time when nobody died.
We're talking about the like 60,000 to 80,000 people a year die of the. But those are people that actually died of the. It's common knowledge that if you have cancer or like 4 comorbidities and you're in bad shape, it's common knowledge. Kids know this, that it's the that's going to take you out or a that's going to take you out, but they're not going to put the on your death certificate. They're going to put what your comorbidity was, whether it was cancer or diabetes or whatever. So they never put the as the cause of death, although the took you out. Again, 60 to 80,000 people here die of the they're not counting how many times the took out someone with cancer. So you got to think like, well, I know people who died of, but I know people who died. Wait a minute. If the test, according to can't tell the difference between the flu, how do you know they died?
Yeah. Eddie, do you ever remember? I'm just saying, in my own experience, I never knew anybody who died with the in the hospital, like personally. Close
No. You've known people that died of cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But probably the killed them, but they don't call it the killed them. They died of cancer. They just couldn't fight off the. Everybody knows that. That's common knowledge.
Well, but the
bottom line
there's something different going on.
The bottom line, though, you know what's you know what the average age of people dying of is?
It's old.
81. That's like
75% obese too.
Yeah, 75%. Exactly, and 95% of that 600,000. I mean, these numbers gotta throw up a red flag somewhere. Like, at what point do the red flags come up? Like, did you just say 95%? Of the people, at first they said 94% died with at least 2 comorbidities. Then they changed it to 95% with at least 4 comorbidities. Does that do something to that 600,000 to you? Or it does nothing to you? And they also said that December 31st, they're going to use a new test because they can't tell the difference between the. That's another one for Team. right? Like, wait a minute, does that mean anything to anybody? Like, to me, like, that kind of mean. And then you go through nobody in the NFL, nobody in the NBA, nobody in the NHL, nobody in the UFC, nobody in jiu-jitsu has died. Does that mean anything to you? Does that mean anything to you? And then another thing is, it turns out that this test, the PCR test, that can't tell the difference between and the it was also set this whole time that we got that 600,000 number at 40 cycles, which according to the and the WHO gives 90% false positives. This whole time we've had 91st. In fact, the day Joe Biden was inaugurated, they said, the WHO said, you know what? Turns out 40% or 40 cycles is too high. We got to knock it down to 28 cycles. Yep. Boom, all the cases went down. Yep. How many people came down with and didn't have any symptoms? All that asymptomatic stuff. What about, that doesn't mean nothing to you? Yep. Doesn't all this keep piling up? Wait a minute. You guys had it at 40 cycles the whole fucking time? And now you're saying that at 40 cycles, it's 90% false positive? Does that do anything to the 600,000 number? Does that do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, does it? Does it? And then now we need a new test because this test that we've been using the whole time. So when someone says, oh, my uncle died of... how do you know? That test can't even tell the difference between according to the WHO and according to the... So how do we know?
Yeah, I don't even think it's though. But something, and it might be from the, which is what he's suggesting. Something is made. There's something different going on right now than has ever been in our life.
It wasn't there before, though. It wasn't there before. Yeah. So there's a whole theory going out there, and I've looked at it very closely, especially starting back last year. And I do have a video. I nabbed it off the internet. It was very hard to get this video. I had a person search for a couple days to get me this video of this woman's Chinese. She's going around to keyboards in New York City and touching them, and she's reaching in her bag and touching them.
She's licking her hand. Yeah.
Right. And so what she actually doing? Well, most likely she's contaminating those keyboards, and most likely New York City, especially New York City, but other big cities around the world were contaminated with spike protein. Spike protein is a manufactured product by pharmaceutical companies for well over a decade, and you can order whichever one you want. You can look at it right now. Get on the internet, punch in spike protein manufacturing, punch that into a search engine and check it out. Now, you can produce spike protein without any...
In short, vaccines all train your immune system on how to recognize the coronavirus.
Signaling, and this is how they manufacture spike protein and have for over a decade. And then it's going to spit out on the other side spike protein. Spike protein is a nano allergen. So yeah, don't search images. Search just go to the web. Yeah, there, and then check that out. You'll see pharmaceutical companies that provide it and sell it. And this is what I think they did. I think what they did is they basically created a spike in problems by contaminating certain regions with spike protein, covering all of New York City, all the buttons, all the handles, so people are basically contaminating themselves with it. This has some validity. I don't know if this is the whole story, but I think it's part of the story, and it's a part of the story that I'd love for people to search up more, because spike protein is a nano allergen. It's an extremely microscopic shit. That's what it is. And so you can guess what's going on with, like, oh, wait, they're injecting people with spike protein? What are they doing exactly? They're intoxicating them, right? They're trying to push them over a limit, like, oh, bye-bye. And one too many straws breaks the camel's back. I think that's their strategy.
I totally agree with all that. I mean, we've had discussions with all the time. See, that's why I think the truth is always somewhere in the middle. There's probably a lot of trained, and there's also some germ. I think probably most of your, I'm going to be honest with you, are probably man-made. A lot of them. A lot of them. I have books at home. It's basically talking about...
I have been forced to read a lot of books now.
Made by these dark forces to try to depopulate us. And obviously there's a lot of money in that. And then there's a lot of money in curing it, starting it and curing it. There's a lot of money.
I mean, how did AIDS get invented? I mean, they said someone fucked a monkey. It goes back to a monkey, us.
You know how hard it is to fucking learn.
Yeah, we've said that before. Yeah, I mean, because that's how it was. Because
That's one of my favorite lines ever.
Boosted my immune system. What's the biggest problem is that the more troublesome the
Like, remember, it was all about ventilators.
What happened to
it was
walking
all
in,
about
getting hit by those laser
Trump
guns?
was like, we need more ventilators in New York. Remember that?
That was Cuomo. We need 30,000 ventilators. And then now no one brings up ventilators. And you know what no one brings up anymore? Washing your fucking hands. No one brings that. Remember, it was they had them on the freeway signs. Wash your hands. Stop the spread. It was all about washing your hands. And then businesses were like all, you know, getting medieval with cleaning everything and spraying and cleaning and bam, everyone's. And now no one's really washing their hands that, you know, as much as they were last year. It's like,
well, yeah, dude, people were washing their groceries and shit, and now they're saying, oh, it doesn't really transmit on surfaces. Actually, we found out
everybody was all about washing your fucking. It was like washing your hands, but then the homeless never washed their hands. But they're surviving. The homeless didn't get wiped out because their immune system was so strong.
Yeah, they're thriving. Yeah.
They're like gremlins. You throw them in the water, they multiply.
Yeah, so either wash your hands 10 times a day or never wash them.
Yeah.
Just being in the middle, that's where that's the death zone in the middle.
I think the notion of dirt also being like this awful thing, like the earth and dirt. Yeah. Like everyone's like, oh, dude, you're dirty. Well, you know, it's the earth, bro. I mean, like you know, grounding, taking your shoes off, walking in the on the dirt, man.
That's why modern parenting has really hurt the health of children, I think. Because, I mean, when you're a kid, you know, you go out barefoot, get dirty, get in the grass and shit, and nobody does that anymore. And you got to be exposed to some fucking shit, you know?
Mothers
make your immune system
love
strong.
their children so much, and they're so scared of being a bad mother and messing up, that they're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then they go to people who are funded by people that don't have our best interests. And, you know, for those who are having kids, there's nothing wrong, obviously, doing some research, looking around. But at the end of the day, I say, man, just trust your instincts, man. Like, you have love in your heart. You know what is positive. You know what is negative when it comes to raising your kids. Like, just trust your soul, man. Don't be running around. You know, there's a certain doctor out there. I asked this person, why do we give newborn babies hepatitis B shots right when they come to the world? This person had no answer. Now this person's telling me, you gotta trust me about for your kids. I went to school for all this, that, all this stuff. But when I asked this person about this, they had no answer. And they're great people. I don't want you to think they're bad people. Their intentions are pure. As far as like I read,
they were just indoctrinated for 7 years.
100%. And the reason they give Hep B, and Dave, you could tell me if this is correct or not. But from what I've been told, the reason they give kids Hep B shots is because there's some botched circumcisions out there, and they don't want to tell you that. They don't want to say, "Hey, man, we fuck up cutting your baby's dick," but so they give them the girls too. Because then that would be that would show that this is a boy thing. So
or just maybe don't cut their dicks. That's another option.
Another discussion.
Yeah, that's another option.
So it's like interesting times, man. Like Davey, I want to get into something with you as we come to an end to wrap this up. Like, what do you think? Where does this all go, man?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, yeah, you have to look at things that are help us deal with the future and the present. And I turn to really good astrologers, the best people I know in the world. You know, people like Santos Bonacci, my friend Aaron Wage. They've been on the money. I mean, I've seen astrologers nail the day. December 14th, that's the day they're going to launch. December 14th comes, that's the day they're launching. Right. So I have to go to them and be like, okay, let me see if I can understand this and see what's going on. We're in a World War II cycle. Neptune in Pisces, Uranus and Taurus, those, and Pluto in Capricorn is also very dangerous. And as soon as that flips over, as soon as we go Uranus into Gemini and Neptune into Aries, that's World War II. That happens in between March and July of 2025. So I think this thing's going to end up going kinetic because there's the New World Order is not going to back off. These people are completely captivated by power. They are absolutely in love with and all those creeps and banksters and all those other morons who are trying to run this whole thing. And eventually it's going to come to a loggerhead. And they're going to obviously attempt to break down the economy, break down the power grids. They're comprehensive cyber attack. They're going to try that, you know, all this crap that they've been talking about. And eventually people are going to get sick of it and they're going to rise up in arms. So at that point, they're probably going to put UN troops down or Chinese troops down or try to do anything to get something in the way of between the people and the predator class. Right, just like they did in World War II. So the predator class that's running this whole thing was like, oh, let's throw the Chinese army at them. You know, they'll fuck them up. You know that. So I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to get into some kind of crazy conflagration. The way it's looking like it's probably going to be with the Chinese, and I think the Russians are going to just kind of sit back and watch it, let the cards fall, and then they're going to take over after this is all done because China's half of its entire economy is the U.S. I mean, if the U.S. goes down, China goes down. You can't. The
symbiotic
rate
for
in China's
sure.
like 30%. They've had the highest rains in 400 years. China's in a lot of trouble.
You know who Kerry Mullis is, right? The guy who invented the PCR test, the test that... Listen to what he says about Fauci. This is the guy who invented the test that where we're getting all these numbers from. Check this out. Play it. That's it. Boom.
That's it.
I think it's totally... And, you know, Dave, I agree with a lot of things. I think we're going to see something come to a head. I think you're right with China. I think China's got their own real problems. I mean, how long is that population going to sit there and allow this small group of people to run them as well? I mean, you're talking about billion-something people. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you can't own Bitcoin. And
do you remember before they were protesting in Hong Kong? And then that all shut it down?
And but look at what's going around the world, bro, dude. People are pushing back like ever. And it's like... You know, we'll see what happens when I put up the episode. But my question is like, we got to ask ourselves: are we going to are the police going to be with us or with them? Because they're always sent. You know, when they crush the resistance, is always in the form of riot police, and these riot police have to understand the resistance. Us, the people, are not going after them. We're fighting for them too. We're fighting for them to have medical freedom, for them to have right of expression, them to have their constitutional rights. We're not just fighting for us. We're fighting for their sons and their daughters, their mothers and their fathers, their grandchildren. Like, that's who we're fighting for. We're not just fighting for us so we can watch porn and put out like fucking lizard people videos on YouTube, right? That's not what we're fighting for.
Dude, maybe that's what this whole Black Lives Matter thing was about, to other the police, you know, set them apart from society so that when the time comes, they will feel comfortable, you know, being the right hand of the government rather than the people.
Maybe.
Possible,
I don't know.
right?
I mean, well, Black Lives Matter all their money went to the Democrats.
I know.
And it's like Dave's neighbor was saying to him when he was 3 that, you know, that the Democrats are going to fucking usher in darkness. And that's what's happening right now. And not that the Republicans are good people. If you think the Republicans are good people, you've lost the narrative as well. Now, the reason I trust certain Republicans more is because they can be more honest. Like, even though Rand Paul thinks it's okay for a business not to want to serve black people because he
doesn't think it's okay. He thinks it's legal.
He thinks it's okay. That's a great clarification. I trust him more, maybe because they've been 2 attempts on his life, maybe, right? So I trust. But dude, and this is to anybody Democrat that listens to this, which I don't think there's a lot of you. I'm an old school liberal, man. Live and let live. That's my opinion, man. Live and let live. To be anti-Democrat does not mean you have to be pro-Republican. It just doesn't. And that's what these older Democrats can't come to grips with. It's like this part, dude, Gavin Newsom is fucking you. He does not represent your fucking needs. And not voting for him doesn't mean you're voting for I voted for a recall. I didn't vote for either of the two parties. I won't do it, man. I remember the Bushes. I remember Nixon. I remember fucking Reagan. I'm not going to forget all that shit because Clintons and the Democrats have suddenly showed how ugly they are. Fuck both sides. We need to stop worrying about Washington. And you said before, governors, mayors, city councils, school boards. That's the power. Yeah. Sheriff. Let's focus on those. And let's not party. Like, I used to do it all the time, dude. Go to the booth. Okay, I'm going to vote for president. Here's all these other ones. D, D, D. Just looking for Ds. Not even like who they are. D, 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 D. It's identity politics, man. And it's like it's playing into the game. Do not assume because someone has a letter that you like that they have their best interest. I'm sorry, dude. That Dan Crenshaw, if you actually studied that fucking dude with an eye patch on what he's doing right now, it is fucking globalist bullshit. He voted for red flag laws. And they're like, well, you know this? Nah, dude. Don't even go there. Don't even go there, bro. Oh, well, you know, they're going to dismiss all these, like, vets, and they have guns, and there'll be felonies. Nah, dude. It doesn't matter. You defend the second to the fucking end, bro. And that's my
That's right.
You know? That's why I'm at. Any thoughts on that? I'm just yelling at people.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I came to Texas. Is Texas has 100 million guns. You know, I met a guy. I was up in Oklahoma City, and we're going back and forth between Oklahoma City and Dallas and doing some business. And this guy's like, "Oh no, I'm a pacifist." I was like, "Oh, cool, bro." Later on, we were hanging out, and I was like, "Well, what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, my hobbies are like shooting guns." This is a guy who's a pacifist in Texas. And then I was like, "Oh, what kind of guns?" He's like, "Oh, I got a Glock and an AR and this and that, an AK and this." And I was like, "Oh, how many guns do you have?" And he's like, "I don't know, maybe 100. That's a pacifist in Texas. I was like, whoa, bro, like that's full on, man.
I love Texas.
And that's the thing is that the reason why they do all these false flags and every goddamn thing possible to try to get your guns away is and it is a communist plot, by the way, because we caught Leanna Wen, that parasite CCP agent who's on CNN in a crisis actor video of her with the Boston bombing shit, which was all created by the FBI and the CIA and the communists to get your guns away. By the way, we caught her. She's on video as a crisis actor. It's like, that's Leanna Wen. Wait, what?
Do we have that video?
We have that video.
Can you look up Leanna Wen Boston bombing? You'll see it, dude. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
But she was also on the Council of Foreign Relations.
Yeah, she's obviously
World
full of
Economic
shit.
Forum.
She's obviously a demon for sure. We're all in agreement that it was a right. They planned this shit,
dude.
right?
All the Chinese people just falling in the
check.
streets.
This was before the. Can you play that video I just sent you? Yeah. Check out this one. This is the proof. This is like 2017.
12. No, you're talking about Leanna Wen. Let's see it.
No, not that one. This is the plan right here. Listen to this.
Listen to this shit.
That was a brainstorming
Why don't we
session.
build the system up?
Here, stop it.
That's a smoking gun.
Yeah.
That's a smoke. If there's a smoking gun, that's it.
Dude, they're strategizing.
Watch
okay,
this.
Check this out.
Have you seen this?
I think
Dr.
so.
Leah Wen, she's an emergency room physician who was working at Massachusetts General Hospital the day of the terror attack. She also works at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So you were at Massachusetts General Monday. What happened?
Oh, it was a horrific day. We had no idea what was coming. It was 3 o'clock and we heard that there were 2 explosions, but we didn't know where. We had no idea how many people were coming to us.
How many people came?
seemed like dozens, and it was. It was probably nearly 3 dozen patients in 2 hours or so.
Look at
Was the hospital ready for it? I heard from Dr. Walls from the other Brigham and Women's Hospital that because of all the drills the hospitals here have been running since 9/11, you were unbelievably prepared.
Technically and medically, we were ready.
It's almost like you knew it was going to happen.
We knew what to do with each individual patient who came in. But I've never seen trauma like this before. The volume and the nature of the trauma was really chilling and really shocking.
And on a personal note, you hadn't yet heard from your husband while this was all going on, and then you hear a cell phone ring. You reach into your pocket, but it wasn't your cell phone ringing.
Yeah, so we actually live just a block away from here, from Copley Square. And my husband had told me that he was coming to watch at the finish line. And then we heard that the explosions happened. So while I was treating patients, I had no idea whether the next patient was going to be my husband. I really thought, because there was soot and blood everywhere, I thought there was a good chance that the next patient I'd be seeing on the stretcher would turn out to be my husband.
I can't take it.
But he was okay.
Stop
He ended up being unharmed,
It's so
but I
bad.
couldn't reach him.
She's
so
so
bad.
dramatic. She's the first one on the guillotine, in my humble opinion. Throw her first on the guillotine. She is an obvious foreign agent. She's part of the CFR. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. They think we're stupid. They do this for sigil magic to just let us know what they're doing.
Well, you say they think we're stupid, but how many people do you know who really know about this? You know what I mean? I mean, they're right. We're ignorant, at least mostly.
Well,
most people are stupid.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I hate to say that. I hate to say that.
Congratulations, lizard people. You're correct.
So her work and she's also ran Planned Parenthood, remember, in the aborted baby body parts dealing, and so that connects her with Kamala Harris, who's an aborted baby body parts saleswoman, where they said, "Oh no, we're not selling aborted baby body parts." Then they got caught again. Then they just try to push it under the rug. Oh, no one's going to jail. Nothing's going to happen. It's perfectly fine, even though we have the numbers. We know exactly who was buying. We know what their price was for the baby's heart. We know what the price was for the baby's liver. I mean, it's just for the brain. This is crazy, like demonic, satanic. It's satanic.
Moloch shit, bro. It's all dark arts Moloch shit. And that's why I always tell, man, it's like everybody wants, these people run the world, these people run the world. It's not a group, man. It's occultics, man. Dark arts occult people who fucking masquerade as all these different groups, whether it's neocons, neoliberals, Zionists, communist Zionists, whatever the group is that these people want pointing fingers at. No, dude, it's all the occult, man. These dark arts people.
And they look at us as sheep. That's an important
herd
point. They
immunity?
look at us as dumb herds of sheep.
Herd immunity? They let you know what they think of us.
This next video is 25 seconds. This is only 25 seconds. Check this out. This is where we get our numbers.
Is this the AOC video? Which one is this?
No, this I don't know who this is, but she looks official. Check this out.
But you had COVID at the same time.
Can you rewind that?
Oh yeah.
Even if you died of
Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Again,
every summer. Was it hard to find because the text at the bottom was in Spanish?
I don't know.
Maybe, dude.
Like you can't find that in English.
Here's the problem, right? Sure. Like, it's the old. It's not the old saying. It's a saying I've heard recently. Don't worry about waking up the sheep. Worry about waking up the sleeping lions. And that's what you got to do. The CNN is never going to run that. MSNBC is never going to run that. They're never going to wake up this small, active group of people that have blue check marks on their fucking thing, and they hate their fathers, and they just refuse to admit that they've been duped. It's like no matter how much you show them, and it's like
that's like it's like I don't even know what you would call it. It's like so many layers because what she said is it doesn't matter what you die of. If we test you and we're marking it as a death from a test that can't even distinguish from the. right? From a test
100%.
that was set at 40 cycles. It's just layer upon layer, which is at 40 cycles, 90% false positives. And they can't even tell if it's... What the fuck is going on here? What are we doing? What are the real numbers? If this shit was in court, the judge would just fucking throw this shit out. Like, it was just like, what?
Well,
These numbers are ridiculous.
The judges, we live in a banana court now. Are these judges enforcing the law? Or are they being sold to the highest bidder? That's why, Eddie, when we were in Omaha, you really fucking hit on it, dude. We have to watch the governors. You know what the internet did?
Local government.
The internet.
They made us forget about local government.
Yes.
And the last 4 years, I've been balls deep in politics, but I was just paying attention to Washington, D.C. I didn't even know who our fucking governor was, but I knew all about Pelosi, Schumer, Nadler, all those fucking demons. I knew all about them, but I didn't even know who our fucking mayor was. And our governor, when the governors are the true presidents, the governors have the real power, and the mayors, but we don't even know. We forgot like how that even works. And I think there needs to be, and Dr. Shiva's doing a great job at that. He's educating people on how local government works and how you get involved in it. Because nobody knows how to get involved in local government. And that's where it all starts. It's all about our governors. And that's, I think this is a complete scamdemic, but I think in a crazy way we needed it because it's exposing the election system, it's exposing the election machines, it's exposing the mayors, the governors, and who has all the power, and the attorney generals and all this shit. So now people know what's up. Everybody knew it was all shady, but now we know how shady it is and how they get away with it. So in a crazy way, it's like if all this wasn't exposed, we would just keep living in a fantasy land like we were during the Obama years, during the Bush years, during the Clinton years, during the Bush senior years, while we were in a fucking haze. We didn't know what was going on. They were just putting all their demons in positions of power. Think about all the years. Think about how deep it must be since at least senior. I mean, they tried to kill Ronald Reagan.
They killed JFK. That's when it started.
Yeah, for sure. But
who
the
killed
plan.
JFK?
But
what did the flat earthers come up with on who killed JFK? Who masterminded it?
Who?
Well, the CIA, obviously, but who was their agent on the ground?
George Bush.
George Herbert Walker Bush.
He was in Dallas today, and he was in Washington, D.C., because I thought he was in New York on the day. He's actually in Washington, D.C. on 9/11.
And his father got busted for funding the Nazis.
And his whole story about his plane going down, he's changed his story 5 times.
Yes.
I think the mission.
Water.
I think the mission was to get the CIA in the White House, and they did it. It was mission when George Bush Sr. came in. It was like mission accomplished. That was like that one mission complete. Now the next mission is the New World Order, and they, what's fucking hilarious? Go back and watch George Sr. doing his presidential debate against Bill Clinton and Ross Perot. Holy shit! Go back and watch that shit. Go back. It's like improv at the fucking Groundlings. It's fucking hilarious.
Ross Perot
hilarious.
Just nailed Al Gore on that Larry King interview about what was going to happen to free trade. And we all laughed at it because he talked funny, man, he got big ass hairs. And he's like, man, it's going to destroy the U.S. We're like, shut up, dude. And Al Gore lied right to our faces.
Yeah.
Because he's Club of Rome, dog. He's just part of it at all. Man, David, Eddie, great episode.
Let's get you back on to talk about
not eating.
Not eating and fasting.
Yeah, we'll do it. Let's do a show. We'll do a show on nutrition, but then we'll take it all the way there on fasting and not eating and how to do what my friend Genesis has done for years, which is long years without eating.
And maybe we'll get into sun gazing. You believe in that? Is that real?
Absolutely.
Sun gazing's real.
Sun gazing maniac.
Oh shit. Okay. All right,
David.
Let's do that soon.
Where can they find you?
On davidwolf.com. Easiest. WOLFE. British spelling.
I will never live that down. David, I love you. Thank you for coming on. Eddie,
Thanks, gentlemen.
Always a pleasure to have you on.
Vegas this Saturday. Oh,
Vegas
shit.
this Saturday is going to be a great time. And I'm super excited. thank you so much for kicking the journey off and joining us again. I love you very much.
Love you too,
Johnny, XG. Thank you guys. Hope to see you in Vegas. There's very few tickets left, so to the 500th, the stand-up show, come join. It's going to be an all-night party. We love you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon. See ya.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind. Tinfoil hat.